Thank you very much for that fantastic introduction. I am lactose intolerant, as lots of people know. Anyone who's worked with me, one of the things is I am currently working for Wix. I am an alumni of Optic Solutions. Shout out Optic Solutions, and they know all about my lactose intolerance. Anyway, so I am very, very pleased to be here in the Southwest speaking at this conference. I've been speaking all over the world in the last few months. I spoke at MozCon. I spoke at SearchLove earlier this month, or last month. I spoke at Brighton SEO twice this year. And I'm really pleased to be speaking here amongst some amazing agencies in the Southwest. I think we have some great talent out here, and amongst some friends that I've known for years. Andrea, I've known you for ages, and there's lots of people in the audience that I've known for ages. So I'm really pleased to be here, and thank you so much to Dave for inviting me. So if we have this, will it click? Is it going to click? This is interesting. Where is it going? I'm going to give all this stuff about how I know how to do all of this. All right, we're going to do this then. Manual, here we are. Hi. Okay, so this is my deck. We're going to be talking about tech SEO for the Omnichannel. And in order to do this, I'm going to need a little help from my friend. And I'll get to that shortly. So we're going to talk about, first, we're going to talk about why is Omnichannel SEO important? Why does it matter? We're going to talk about how you set priorities. And we're also going to talk about how you can add value with SEO to the Omnichannel. And to do this, I'm going to need a little help from someone who is the other Mrs. Carter. And I bring up Beyonce, not just because we are identical twins. And not just because she's super talented and has the voice of an angel, not just because she's, amazing and my favorite, but because she's brilliant at omnichannel SEO. If you've ever studied Beyonce, which is something that I do, then you would see that this is something she does all the time. Thanks, John. Thanks. Does this work? Is this the one that works? Oh, okay. He's my tech support. Are you going to turn it off and turn it on again? Oh, that's promising. Yes. Thanks, John. Thank you. Okay, so Beyonce is fantastic at omnichannel marketing. We all know her for her music, right? But Beyonce has many, many talents. So she does her music stuff, and when she does her music, she promotes it with shows. And she promotes it on social media, and she promotes it on video. But she also launched an app. She launched Tidal app. She also does lots of photography for music videos. She also does films. So if you think about Lemonade, that's a film. She also puts her heart into lots of things that she does. So she, has Be Good, which is a charity, and it gets involved with some politics things. She also has an e-commerce platform. And you know this because I tried to buy some of the merch from her homecoming tour, and I was not able to because it completely sold out. There's also all of the Ivy Park drops that happen all the time. So she also has that she's involved with Adidas and other folks. And she also is very, very much a business person. And as well as doing her own shows, she also produces shows. So I think she produced with Jay-Z, she produced the Super Bowl with Shakira and J-Lo and all of that sort of stuff. And the thing about that is that she understands this. She does this all the time. So she has built up her capacity to do this over time. So with Lemonade, for instance, she had her album that she launched, but she didn't just launch an album, she launched a visual album. And not only did she launch a visual album, but she had to get it from Tidal, which was her own app, which is her own label, which she did it herself, right? So it wasn't just one piece of content, it was just one channel, one album that was just on the radio, it was across multiple channels. Then, during Beychella, which I stayed up at 3 o'clock in the morning to watch live on YouTube before they took it down. That wasn't just an event. That wasn't just a concert. I remember watching it and people in the comments were like, oh my God, this looks like a movie. This looks like it's a movie. And it was a Netflix movie. So not only was it the event, not only was it the Netflix movie, but she also put out another album as well as that. So that was multiple channels that she was hitting there. And then when she did The Lion King, this I thought was an absolute tour de force here. So she in The Lion King was Nala in The Lion King. Then she did the soundtrack for The Lion King. Then a year later, when Disney Plus launched, she launched Black is King. And not only is she the star of that film, the entire film, wearing 3 million hats and 25 different outfits, but she also launched another album on top of that. So why is she doing this? Why is she doing this all the time? Why is she hitting all of these different channels? Because she understands something very important. She understands that the brand is everything. And so the brand must be everywhere. If you are somebody who's involved with a beehive, you are going to see Beyonce anywhere you go because she makes sure that you do. She makes sure that she's on all of the channels. She makes sure she's on all of the platforms. And this is something that we also see in the SERP. So if you look up Beyonce's Renaissance, because it's cuffing season, you will see that you won't just see her album, but you'll see lots of different ways to access the album. So you see all the track listings, but you see up that line up there. It says overview, news, songs, videos, reviews, listen, analysis, artists, all of that sort of information. Plus they've got all of the ones up underneath Beyonce Renaissance, images, news, videos, shopping, more. And then furthermore, they also give you lots of other ways to listen because Google understands that if I'm looking at Beyonce's Renaissance, I don't just want to hear, I don't want to see the track listing. I don't want to look at it. I want to listen to it. So they give me lots of ways to access it. And if I'm on my mobile, I can click directly from that into Spotify, directly from that into YouTube Music, into Apple Music, into Deezer, etc. And this also translates to some other parts of the SERP as well. If you just look up Beyonce, for instance, which I do, you'll see that they're giving you lots of different information. So, of course, you're going to get the plain blue link is what we call this. This is the regular sort of listing for her website. They're doing well. They're hitting their SEO points. Good job. But there's all this stuff that's happening above it because Google knows that as a user, you want lots of different types of media and lots of different types of information for the kinds of queries that you're making. So if you're looking at Beyonce, you might want to see like a recent photo shoot. You might want to see the recent video. You might want to know how old she is. You might want to know who she's married to. You might want to know lots of different things like that. So they're adding all of these elements across the SERP. So it's very important to think about lots of different ways that people are accessing information online so that you're not just thinking about the website, but you're thinking about lots of ways that people are accessing information about you, your brand, your company, your projects, what you're doing. And you might say, hold up, wait a second. What if I'm a small business, right? What if I'm just a little business, just minding my own business, doing little things, right? This applies to you too. Because when you're going online, your users are getting lots of different ways to access information. And on Google, there's not just one page one. There's lots of different parts of the SERP. And lots of them go from the SERP, search engine results pages for anybody who doesn't like acronyms, SERP, they go from the SERP to apps. So for instance, if I click on that one about Beyonce and I want to see like the video for the latest thing, it takes me straight into YouTube. If I want to know directions to the O2 where she's performing, it takes me straight into Google Maps. If I want to hear a podcast that she was on, it takes me straight into Google Podcasts, into that app. And then there's also Google managed or heavily instructed channels. So if you think about something like Google Business Profile, that's Google managed. That's good, all the stuff you upload onto that is sort of managed by them. Google Books is something that's also managed by them. Google Shopping, Google Merchant, Google Travel, all of those sorts of things. These are all Google managed channels. And these are ways that Google's making sure that you're able to offer your information in lots of different ways. And we see this across the SERP in lots of ways. So, for instance, if you were just doing a blog on holiday travel destinations, then there's ads, there's the knowledge graph, there's also these special sort of things that Google is managing these channels. So if you're just doing your website, you're missing all of that. There's also, and again, with shopping, you're also going to see more shopping when you're thinking about Google Shopping, for instance, if you were saying a furniture store. And also, if you were thinking about Google Maps, they're also showing things there. So it's important to think about lots of different channels when you're thinking about Google. And even if you're thinking about something that's more informational and less transactional, then you're going to see more things like this. So, for instance, on something about Duchess potatoes, then you would see something like this. You would see recipe cards, which are heavily informed by schema markup, which is something that is prescribed by Google so that you can be eligible for this particular part of the SERP. You'd also see, in the same search result further down, you'd also see information about videos. You'd also see information about short videos. And one of the reasons why Google is thinking about this is because they understand that users want information in lots of different ways. And they understand that in order to keep pace with what users want, they need to diversify the SERP. And that's because, of course, Google is ruling the SERP. They are clearly, when it comes to search, they rule the world. But, we're seeing that they've got 8.5 billion searches a day. And they've got 96% of global mobile search. And with Chrome, their browser market is growing. It's like 66% and growing, but they're not unchallenged, right? So when we think about something like Bing, which a lot of people overlook Bing, a lot of people don't have time for Bing. I actually really like Bing webmaster tools, but here we go. Bing, we think of Bing as like whatever Bing. But if you look at a recent spike for Google traffic, let's say their market share on desktop was 90% in 2018. If we look actually further towards closer to now, if we look at June, they actually dropped. So Bing actually went up. They saw an increase that's equivalent to Google's decrease actually during that time. And this actually is very interesting because they're still in charge of things, but they're not unchallenged. And actually in some spaces, Bing is actually doing pretty good. So for instance, Bing gets about 90 million searches per day, but they also are the search engine that drives Yahoo, DuckDuckGo, Ecosia. And in some markets, they actually outperform Google. So for instance, in China, they have 13% of search volume over Google's about 4%. In other spaces, we also see that Google is challenged. So for instance, Amazon is the preferred search engine for shopping in the US. How much preferred? 61% of people start their e-commerce journeys on Amazon, over the 49% of people starting their e-commerce journey on search engines in the US, for instance. And we see in other things, so Facebook, for instance, has about 1.5 billion searches per day. Pinterest has about 2 billion searches per day. And we all know that Gen Z is thinking about TikTok as more than just a place to get videos. They're thinking about a place where they can also get information. Now, Google has a few tricks up their sleeve, and they're trying to make sure that they're able to upgrade your search experience, right? So they've been talking about search on. They've talked about lots of different ways where they can make it even more diverse as far as search goes. So they're hinging a lot of their developments on Google Lens. I talked about this at Digital Gaggle, but they're hinging a lot of their advancements on Google Lens. So they have Translate. You can do written text. You can do homework, shopping, landmarks, and there's something called multi-search. I've used this myself. You take a picture of something and you can search it with Google Lens, and then you can add an additional bit of text to it. And then you can find near me, or you can find more things. So for another example that they give is if you were to take a picture of a dress, you could say, I don't want the dress in that color. I want it in this color. And they'll give you searches for that, for instance. They're also thinking about adding more like advertorial information around like sort of more magazine sort of experience around information. And they're also privileging information around forums and content like that. So if you're still thinking that you can just go through the same steps and not have things go a little bit crazy, then you're going to be a little bit surprised, right? So you have to make sure that you're thinking about lots of different ways to handle your channels. And this is because if you look up Google and you ask them how search works, they don't talk about websites. They talk about information. They say our mission is to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible. Information, not just websites, information. So SEO is important for every channel because every channel is impacting organic traffic. Here's another example. Let's think about building brands. If you search up building brands, which is on a Wix website, by the way, you'll get two results for the website, right? Then you'll get 2 for Eventbrite. Then you'll get 2 for LinkedIn. Shout out to AB Brand Marketing there, getting in on the LinkedIn. I see you, whoop. And then you get 1 for Instagram. Well, 3 out of 7 of those are social media, for instance. And one of the reasons why is because Google did a SERP diversity update a few years ago that said that you couldn't rank for lots and lots of pages off the same domain. So if you have a brand presence that includes lots of different channels, you're able to get more of the real estate on the SERP, even if it's not from your domain. So it serves you in lots of ways to have your brand presence across lots of different channels when you're on the SERP. And this is because Google is actively indexing social media, and it affects the SERP. So, for instance, they're ranking for keywords by the millions. How many millions? 900 million keywords. There's 900 million keywords for different brands and different products across just these 5 bits of social media. And you can see that like with building brands, for instance, they're ranking for certain keywords that are associated with building brands. We see it with Wix. They're ranking for certain keywords where they're associated with brands. We also see that they're getting organic traffic. And I'll tell you right now, your social media team isn't looking at the traffic that they're getting for Facebook from organic, but you should be. Right? How many sessions? About 7.5 billion sessions per month. That's important. That's something to think about. And Google is thinking about this in a couple of ways. So they can't decide what to do with Pinterest. They love it. They hate it. They love it. They hate it. They can't decide what to do with Pinterest, but they are indexing it. And as I said, with their SERP diversity update, they don't always show the same URL for more than a few times, but they do for Pinterest sometimes. And that's because for certain results, they know that people really, really like the results that they get for Pinterest. So they show them quite regularly. And when we think about Twitter, we also see how this affects organic because there's a couple of different ways. If you're somebody who tweets regularly, like I do, then you'll see that the links that you share on your Twitter account, if they show on Google, which mine often do, and if you are tweeting a lot, they will. These links that you share on your Twitter account, when somebody clicks on them, they count as organic in your Google Analytics. And I've had it before where I was tweeting something about like a May the 4th, May the 4th be with you kind of joke. And then my website started ranking for May the 4th jokes. And I was like, why is that? I have nothing about May the 4th on my website. And it was because of Twitter. Similarly, if you're on LinkedIn, and no, I didn't pay anyone to write this, but thanks, Becky. LinkedIn is very often showing for featured snippets for people in your team. So I've seen other people post this as well, where it says if you look up, like, is so-and-so good at this? What is so-and-so known for? You'll see a snippet from LinkedIn that's showing on there. And that's, again, affecting your organic if you have it all linked. So you need to be where the people are. You need to be right in the mix of it because this is where your users are. This is where Google is, and this is what's going on. So when you think about omnichannel SEO makes your website your brand HQ for people who discover you on other channels, but grow with you on organic. So that's a lot, right? Basically, I'm like, do all of the things. Be everywhere all the time. Be Beyonce. Do it now. No. Okay, that's too much. How do you set priorities for all of that? How do you set priorities? With data. You always start with data. Never like do anything without data. You wouldn't, I don't know, order a coffee without data. You need data, of course. So you want to use data to identify channels for content and for potential content and potential growth opportunities. One thing that I would say is you want to look in your Google Analytics. You want to look at source medium for high traffic sources over time. You also want to look in your backlinks from Google Search Console to find gaps for growth and potentially by site type. And also you want to think about your CRM. So the reason why I talk about Google Analytics is because sometimes you'll find things you wouldn't expect. So I talked about Google Lens. I've been talking about Google Lens loads this year. It's something I've been really interested in. And there's lots of different types of things that you'll see in your source medium that you wouldn't see if you were just looking in the sort of default channels that you get in Google Analytics. So you can see that here we have a few, and certainly within GA4 they have new channels. They have new designations for across organic and across other things. So like organic social did not exist in previously, or then organic video didn't exist previously. So they've got them spread out in a different way. And Google Lens is also something that shows up in referral. Now I think of Google Lens as organic, but actually it shows up as referral. So if you're looking for your Google Lens traffic to see if you're getting traffic from Google Lens, and look in referral. So make sure that you're looking into that as well. And if you want to dig down into that a little bit deeper, one thing I did was I did an example of a B2B site, and they had 25 different sources from Google, which I was like, that's a lot. And what did I see? Number 5 was Gmail, which I thought that was interesting because we weren't particularly doing email campaigns particularly, so I thought that was very interesting. Then I also found that number 7 was Google Classroom. which was another one that I thought was very surprising. I don't know how many people were looking at Google Classroom. And also Google Keep. I don't know, people who are Android users will know about this, but it's like a little sort of like note-taking thing that you can, an app that you can get on your Android phone. So looking at this, when we're thinking about opportunities for content, opportunities for growth, what I see when I look at this is I see that we are a resource. We are a knowledge resource, that people are taking notes, that people are using our content in their classroom. And that's something that we could think about. That's something that we could build on. That's something I could go to my team and I could say, look, we have this many people who are using us in Google Classroom. Maybe we could make something that is more classroom friendly. Maybe we could make something that is more like downloadable resources or you know, some way that we can capture that the people that want to gain knowledge from us in this way. Backlinks is like, we think about backlinks for lots of reasons, but one of the things I find interesting is that within Google Search Console, they bump them together. So again, this was another B2B client that wasn't doing a lot on Amazon, so I was like, why do we have so many backlinks from Amazon? And then we weren't doing particularly very much on Pinterest, but again, we have loads of like links from Pinterest, so I thought that was really interesting. And then I started thinking about it, and I was like, well, what about a brand that isn't particularly advertising on Amazon? And it was in Google Search Console, so I thought, well, let's just look up Google Search Console. And looking on Amazon, I found, oh yeah. Google Search Console, Amazon doesn't just have books, doesn't just have products. Amazon also has podcasts, for instance. Google Search Console has a podcast that they do. They talk about that. So those links could potentially be coming from Amazon. The other thing that I found is that there's lots of people who talk about your business in other ways on Amazon as well. So this is like, for instance, with Google Search Console, there's people who are not from Google Search Console, but are writing books about Google Search Console. So that's a potential, like maybe we should also be writing publications for ourselves, or maybe we should take some of our ebooks or our publications or some of our white papers, for instance, and maybe we should publish them on Amazon, which is something that you can do fairly easily. Also reviews have their own section on Amazon, and that's something that you can also get some more brand visibility on. So these are things that are worth looking at when you're looking in your Google Search Console and looking at your backlinks to see the trends that you see there. Also think about your CRM. And of course, your CRM can be something as fancy as Salesforce, or HubSpot, whatever you want, what have you, but it can also be Slack. A lot of conversations happen over Slack or is it, what's the one on Microsoft? Yammer? Is that it? Yammer? I don't use Yammer, but I'm sure that's a thing. So those conversations, you can sometimes, I do this, I'm in a team with lots and lots of people, and if you have Slack and you have archive on Slack, if your team has had Slack for a long time, you can search conversations on Slack, and you can search for the kinds of conversations that people have had about that topic. When your customer service team comes to someone and says, does anybody know about this? Does anybody know about that? And if you're not able to answer that, and if those questions are showing up regularly, then that's content that you could be making. For instance, if you're having a situation where people are saying, oh, we went to this event and we had this, and this, well, maybe you should be making some more content around that, or maybe you should be thinking about events even. And there's also other things within your CRM that can help you give information about offline channels like phone, like SMS campaigns, or print campaigns, radio campaigns, word of mouth, all of that sort of thing. So have a look in your CRM as well. And don't forget the things in your actual store. If you're seeing traffic from Google Lens, for instance, you might be seeing people taking photos of certain products. You might be seeing people looking at your displays. I've seen displays that are digital displays, which also include QR codes, which allow people to connect with your website directly from in-store. So talk to the people in your shop as well. If they're seeing that everybody comes in and they take a picture of the display, then that could potentially be a search opportunity for you. That could potentially be a channel opportunity for you. All right, all of that said, how do you actually add value? Once you've collated all the data, how do you actually add value to this? Well, you want to think about optimizing for speed, optimizing for fluidity, and optimizing for connectivity. So from a technical SEO point of view, I'm a technical SEO. I really like making sure that the websites are fast, working, all good. It's pretty straightforward. One of the reasons why you want to do this is because it's more consistent for user locale and also device. Depending on where you're working and where your customer base is, the type of device that they have can be a big hindrance or a big opportunity for you with regards to like how fast they access the site, particularly if you're working in places where, or if you're working in markets where people have a lower incomes, for instance, they might have older phones. If you're working in places where it's a little bit less networked, like Ipplepen in Devon, where you can only get the internet via Vodafone, for instance, there's also issues there as well. So you want to make sure that your website is as fast as possible so that you don't have issues with that, and so that speed is not a barrier. Speed is also great for CRO. There have been multiple studies about how when users have to wait, they leave, and I do that myself. So just think about that. And also, it can improve your ranking signals. So speed and Core Web Vitals, those are both ranking signals for Google. So and they're not one of the woolly ones. They're ones that Google have said this is a very important ranking signal. So think about it. And a way to do this is to think about Core Web Vitals updates, third-party scripts. If anybody's ever looked in an old, and I know there's a lot of agencies here today, and working agency side, I remember you'd always log into the tag manager, and there was some tag that nobody remembered ever putting on there. It's like Hotjar or something else from 4 years ago, and they can't find the login and blah blah blah. But it's dragging down the site. So make sure you're managing those scripts. Make sure that you don't have anything there dragging you down for no reason. Think about your security configuration. So not all SSLs are the same. I've seen SSLs that had broken chains, which were not valid, and they can slow your site down significantly. I did a talk on this on Brighton SEO a few years ago. So if you go to my SlideShare, you can see the information about that. I've also written a blog about it recently, so I could go on about it literally for an hour, but I won't. And also CDNs and servers. So this is something that we do at Wix a lot. So for instance, we have cloud servers that are based all over the world that serve the website closest to the client. So for instance, if building brands it makes it big in Brazil, for instance, I'm sure you're working on that. Next year we'll all be in Sao Paulo. So if building brands is big in Brazil, then we would serve the website in Brazil. If it's big in Berlin, we'll serve the website in Berlin, but only in B cities and B places. So this is something that we do, but it's also something that you can do if you're thinking about your cloud configuration and your servers and all of that, and it can make a big difference for your speed. When we think about fluidity, this is making sure that everything flows really nicely from the SERP through to your website. So fluidity is about fluidity of content experience. So we want to think about schema for rich results. This is really good. This is something that allows you to have good visibility on the SERP and on your website, and that it's continuous. And also data feeds for distribution, and also multimedia optimization. So thinking about schema markup, if you don't know what schema markup is, I have a blog on this on the Moz website, but essentially schema markup, basically, the way I describe it is it's like you could give Google a vegetarian pizza, or you could give them all of the component parts of a vegetarian pizza. And if you give them all the component parts, then they can make a cheese pizza or a mushroom pizza or an olive pizza or a mushroom and olive pizza. And that's essentially what schema markup does. It takes the component parts that are most important about your website and it gives them to Google so they can reconfigure them as like beautiful recipe card SERPs or as beautiful shopping search results. So that's essentially what it is. But it's a bit of code that sometimes looks scary, but isn't actually. And what happens if you have good schema markup on your website is that Google can take it from your website and they can serve it online before people even get to your page. So people can already see it before they get to it. So they have a fluidity of content. So they're ready for your content before they even log in. And they're already sort of pre-qualified, which is great for you, great for them, great for everybody. We think about data feeds. Data feeds are fantastic because data feeds allow you to connect to lots of different spaces. So this is an example from Go Data Feed, and they will take your data feed, particularly like if you're thinking about your product feed for your e-commerce business, you can connect that to Amazon, to TikTok, to Google, to Pinterest, to Instagram, to Facebook, to lots of different places in one thing. And that's one feed doing the job of sending all of your information across lots of different spaces. And of course, e-commerce is very much familiar with this because with Google Merchant, we all had to get familiar with shopping feeds. And so we all know about that. But there's also lots of other data that uses feeds as well. So for instance, podcasts use data feeds. And also Google for Jobs, for instance, also uses data feeds so that you can distribute it across multiple different channels for jobs. And also your RSS can act as a data feed for content from blogs and from other information. And then we want to think about multimedia optimization. So multimedia is really important because Google's really big into video right now. They love it. And so they want to see more video, they want to see more images, they want to see more and more there. And so we need to make sure that we're optimizing for that. So again, we have fluidity of content and fluidity of understanding what's going on the website. And we know that Google's interested in video because they've told us, because they added an extra report into Google Search Console to tell you all about your video page indexing and tell you about the pages which are being indexed and which videos are being indexed and how they're all working there. And also because they added another channel into Google Analytics. When we think about connectivity, this is about making sure that people are able to connect to your website with as little friction as possible. So we want to think about relevant API integrations, automation for scalability, and also audience and language, things for audience and language. So APIs stands for Application Programming Interface. And if you've ever logged into a website and instead of having to do all of the logins, you just connected via Facebook, you've used an API. Everybody here's used APIs. We use them all the time. It's really, really useful, and it allows you to get, literally, you say, get this from this programming, from this bit of software, and you use it on this bit of software. And you can see that there's been massive growth in it in the last few years. And then Google has over 400 different APIs in their library, and they allow you to connect lots of different parts of Google into your website and out of your website, and to make sure that data flows back and forth, and to make sure that it's really, really useful and really, really fluid for everyone. So if you don't have API integrations and you're not sure which APIs you need, have a look in the Google Cloud Platform library and see what kinds of information might be relevant for you. And when we think about schema and APIs, we also see that it allows you to connect to different parts of Google. So for instance, the Google Hotels API connects with lodging schema, which allows you to do Google hotel ads, Google travel, things like that. The content API connects with product reviews and product collections and reviews, and allows you to do Google shopping. Not exclusively, you can also do it with schema markup, but it allows you to do that. The indexing API also allows you to do job posting and to get on Google for jobs. This is all super valuable stuff that helps you to make sure that the content that you have on your website is distributed in lots of different ways in very fluid and accessible manner. And other APIs also allow you to do things. So John talked a lot about automation. The APIs give you great access with regards to data, with regard to automating some of your tasks. This is an API integration that we built into the Wix CMS that allows you to get information about Google Search Console in your CMS, which saves you a step, which saves you having to go all out of one program and into another one, and it allows you to get more information. We're not the only ones who are using the Google Search Console API, but I'm pretty proud of that. And the other things that automation allows you to do is it allows you to connect different tools. So again, John was talking about automation. With automation, you can connect Facebook to your Google Ads. You can connect one program to another. You can connect this to that, and it can allow you to make sure that you have consistent content across lots of different channels. And it can also allow you to maximize your time when you're trying to be everywhere. And when we think about languages is really important, particularly if you're thinking about growth. So when we're thinking about growing our channels and meeting our audiences where they are, sometimes that includes geography, and sometimes that includes different ways that people are accessing the site. And for instance, if you're thinking about Google Ads, you might be, and let's say you're based here and you want to be doing stuff in France. Well, maybe you don't speak French. You might want to think about translating your site so that your ads perform better for French audiences, and that's something you should think about as well. And you also want to think about the different understanding your audience. So, for instance, I looked up the world's most popular social networks across the world, and coming in at number 5 is WeChat, which I've never used. But it's the number 5 social media platform in the world. So if I was working in that market, it would be really useful for me to be thinking about making sure that I had a presence in that particular market. And we also want to think about some of the local things. So for instance, within Wix Payment, we have a tool that allows you to see different payments and different payment methods that are most popular in different regions. In Brazil, they use something called Juno. They use something called PagSeguro. I've never used those, but apparently they're really big in Brazil. In Australia, they've got a whole other different set of different information. They've got BitPay, eWay, FatZebra. I've never used FatZebra or FatZebra. But it's clearly something that is important to them. So if you're thinking about expanding into markets and you're looking in your Google Analytics and you're seeing that there's lots of people coming from Australia or coming from New Zealand or coming from wherever, it's something that you want to think about. So Omnichannel Tech SEO makes the website your brand HQ, and it enables your brand to do all of the things consistently. To do this, you want to review user activity trends to identify opportunities, and you also want to prioritize for speed, fluidity, and connectivity. And if you ever get lost, just remember, what would Beyonce do? Yeah, thank you.